Okay, you can see I am at the machine now, and I want to point out a couple of things as we go along. I have my hoop clicked into the machine already. I have the grid in here, and I'm going to talk about calibrating in just a moment. But I have my hoop on, and I have my quilt rolled up on this side, and I have the bulky part down here. I'm in a standing table, and I have a drawer, so I will use that to help hold up my bulk. If I had a much bigger quilt, I would bring something over here to hold up. You don't want it to drag, so you want to hold up all that bulk. Now in the manual, if you're a manual reader, there is a section on using this hoop and how to do a stipple design. They have you draw this grid line on your quilt, all these grids, and then you will start in the center and you work your way out and around your quilt. And you can do it that way. You can definitely put two center lines down your quilt and work off of that. That's perfectly fine. For this little piece, I'm starting right up here and I'm just going to work my way across. I've pretty much done most of my quilts this way, and I haven't had really an issue with it. But everybody's different, so you can actually set it up any way you're more comfortable with, and try it with the center if you want, or try from this top, however you'd like to do that. Now, the other thing I did is I added a line coming down this way, so that when we start to we're going to probably do one over this way, and I'll do one down here. When I align this way, I have something else to help me align my grid on, so I keep it straight as I come down. This edge of my quilt might not be straight. I may end up stitching over on the side here. It's a great possibility. In my machine, I have a 50 weight quilting thread with the matching bobbin. It is a variegated thread, so we'll see how it comes out. Sometimes with variegated, the bobbin thread and the top thread, they connect in different parts of the colors, and sometimes that throws you off, but we'll see. And I do have a green backing. I don't suggest in the very beginning to have contrasting or different threads in your top and your bobbin. Only because there's always a peeky poo that comes out. Even when you're long arming, you have that same issue. I try to match the colors as best I can. I could use a solid pink, a paler pink in this for this part. I might even go to a lighter gray or something, because that may pick up, a very light gray may pick up some of the green when it's stitched. Some of these colors, it works that way. So it doesn't really show up that much on the back of your quilt. It just depends on what you're doing. The other thing I did is I turned on, in my set mode, I turned on one stitch stop. And what one stitch stop does is it will move to the first stitch. The needle, you'll hold your top thread, your needle will cycle down, and it'll pick up your bobbin thread, and needle come back up, and you'll pull the thread, and your bobbin thread will be at the top. This way, you don't have a lot of that nest on the back. You have a nice clean back when you get done. The other thing I did before I got started is, before I had my hoop on, before I had my quilt in here, I put my grid on here, and I went to my set mode, and I went to hoop calibration. And in hoop calibration, I'm just going to X out of there. In hoop calibration, you will set the center of your hoop. Sometimes the hoops will come and you're not centered in there. And that's the thing you don't want to happen, is now that you've aligned it right, and then it goes to start, and that's not really where the center is, that could be a problem. This design, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see this design really quick. The pink circle is center needle. See if I can get it. There we go. The pink part is the center needle, and the green circle is where the first stitch will be. And if you notice, it's hard to see here, but center needle is not on the stitch line at all. So that's why, it's not really going to start stitching in the center. When you hit start, it's going to come over here to this side, because there's no stitches right. Sometimes there will be stitches right there. Sometimes the start will be off to one side or the other. So just to make sure you understand where that is, I wanted to show you that. And I want to show you the hoop calibration in the manual. I have a page of the manual I'm going to hold up here, because I can't move my camera in front of there. So you'll go to this page in your set mode. See at the very top, it's blue. That's the embroidery side. And then there's these different things there. And then at the bottom one is hoop calibration, number 18. So you'll select that, and then this window will open up and you'll click your hoop in at that point with the grid. And once you do, your hoop will say your hoop right there. And then you'll use your thumb wheel or your hand wheel to bring your needle down through the hole of the grid to make sure it's in center. And if it's not, you use those little arrows. You have to bring your needle up a little bit. Use those arrows to move. It moves the hoop actually, not the needle. It moves the hoop under your needle till it's in the center. And once it is, just select OK, and your hoop is calibrated. Once you calibrate, you shouldn't have to calibrate again unless you're moving your machine around and taking it places or something like that. I will sometimes double check a hoop or two that way to make sure that they're centered. A lot of times they're perfectly on the first time, but you know, one never knows. Okay, so once you're calibrated, you've turned on one stitch stop, you're just about ready to go. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. Now, when you put your hoop on and you have your needle, you have your template there, and you're calibrated, sometimes your template is off a little bit from what the machine is because the machine is exact and we are not. So you can actually what's called jog your needle. It's actually moving your hoop to be more centered at that point. So what you're going to do, and I'm going to show you, I can't take my camera over there, so I have another picture from the manual, and here we go. So here's the screen of your machine. Here, this is a great page. This is page 49, and if you print this out, you don't actually have to print your whole manual. You could print just this page, and then you have all of this information about what everything is. Right down here, let's look at this one. Here we go. Right here shows you what all those things are at the bottom. And right number 10 here, this one here, this are the jog keys. And those arrow keys will move your hoop left, right, up and down so that you can get the needle centered on your crosshair, all right, or any mark that you have. Today we're using our regular foot, so we're going to, we'll do it that way. When we try, I'm going to try it again another day, we'll use the positioning marker foot so I can show you how that works as well. And then to the left of that is this hoop here. This is called hoop back. And when you touch that, you'll get a new menu and you can have your hoop come towards you. So you can, if you're doing applique and things like that, or even rehooping, it'll bring that hoop towards you a little bit, and it's helpful. You can bring it to one corner or one side, you have a choice. And then off to the right, where it's highlighted in orange, that's the cross on the center of your screen. So if you have that on, you'll see the cross and where it's stitching. I find that very handy, so I know where the center is and where the first stitch is on the screen of my machine. So that's very helpful. There's some other things there too. Number 8 is shows one color. If you select it, with one petal, it shows one color at a time. And if you have it unselected, it shows the complete design. And then to the right of that is your thread list. And there's a bunch. The basting is there. To the left, this is your basting over here. To the left of your hoop back key. Okay. All right, I'm going to move that out of the way. And I think we're pretty good here. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off my template because I don't need it. And I don't want to stitch through it. And, you know, we've done that. We've stitched through it. I've had people in a class leave their grid in and we hit the grid and, it happens. It's, just be careful. Change your needle if that happens. That's what you want to do. Now, I could do a basting on here if I wanted to baste this. I could definitely do a basting around here. And with me being on the edge of my piece, I may do that. Let me just pull this out gently. I do want to move, I do have that pin under there. I do want to remove that pin because it's going to be in my way. There we go. And this tape might just be in the way. I don't know if I do a basting. So when I baste, what I do is I will cycle my needle myself first, down and up, and pull up that bobbin thread. And then I will open my basting function and I will choose just the once around baste. And then I'll hit the start stop button. So we'll baste this one. I don't always baste, but we'll baste today because you never know what's going to happen. And it's very close to the top. You can see that. And I'm not really holding those threads real tight. I'm just holding them to keep them out of the way. But by starting in the middle, it brings up your bobbin thread nicely. I think we're going to hit the tape, but that's okay. And that way it catches better over here. Our threads nowadays are very slippery, and a lot of times that little piece can't catch if you just let it go over there. So best practice is to do that with your bobbin thread. So we're back to the center. I'm going to X out of there, and I'm going to hit the start stop button. It should go to the start of my design, and I'm going to turn my speed down on there. Before I start, I do have the same thread top and bobbin. I do have my 10-gram case in. I don't have the blue dot case in. I don't have one yet for my CM17. Typically, the 10 gram should work for you just fine. I'm using this variegated thread, and sometimes that will throw you off when it's stitching because it's light and dark, and I have the same in my bobbin. All right, and I did put in the purple tip Janome needle. So I'm just going to hold this off to the side, and I'm going to hit hit my start button. It did its one stitch stop. I'm going to pull up that bobbin thread. There it is. And you can almost see that that is dark, and that's the light color on there. And I'll use different threads in my bobbin, matching the shade of my top thread. So I may use a lighter pink or something on the back that will go better with my green. I wouldn't put a green in here, especially when you first start. I try to match my threads. Even when I long armed, I matched my threads. There's always that one stitch that pokes to the top, and it's always like right in this spot right here where it's cream. You'll see the bobbin thread. So we don't want to see that. So I try to pick a shade that it goes with my thread on the top, but will blend a bit with my back thread, my backing. And if you have a busy backing, a lot of times even when you're free motioning, if you have any bobbles, they don't show as much. All right, so here we go. I'm going to start my machine, and then I'll clip those threads. So I'm going to just hold this gently. It's making its little knot. It's going to stitch away, and I'm going to go right here and clip that. There we go, and here it goes. This is about a 3-minute stitch out, so I'm going to let it stitch while I talk. And I'm going to stop a minute. I have a thread in there. I don't want to get it stitched in. There we go. And you can see it came up to the top corner. I'll zoom in a little bit. Maybe we can see better. And I apologize. Oh, here, I'll hold this so it doesn't shake as much. My camera's attached to my table, so it's hard to not have it shake. So it'll come close to that basting stitch. I always like to say when I'm doing this, look, Mom, no hands. My machine is doing it. Now I'm running really slow. You don't have to run this slow, but it would take even less time. But since I am manning a camera and standing on a stool and stepping off of that, I like to have it go a little bit slower, so if I have to react to something, I can. There we go. We're almost coming around. We got this last section to do, and then we're going to come around to the center. So one of the things you can do, and this is why I wanted to start with a simple stipple, is to go ahead and stipple some fabric up, maybe that you're going to make a tote bag out of, or a handbag of some sort. So or maybe placemat. So take some fabric. Maybe you want to do something that's 36 by 36 or 45 by 45, and set a stipple and stipple across it and down it, and then use that in a project. That way, sometimes I hate to waste things that I've done. Something like this, I can turn this into something else at some point. There we go. So it came back to the center and I'm all set there. So now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try to zoom back out here. Let's see if we can, there we go. All right. So what I do next is one of two things. I have my grid here and I'm going to take my little template and I'm just going to cut a little bit on this one side here. This is the side that has to match up with the other one. And I want to be close to the stipple because I want to see that's the stipple that I'm going to match up to. I'm going to lay my template on there and show you what I mean. So that should do it. There we go. This one here. And here we go. All right. So you can move your fabric and place your template right along here on this side. I'm going to move my camera so you'll be able to see that. And I can tape my template down there and restart. Or I can attach it to my grid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking my magnets off, my magnet clips. There we go. Sometimes I use the corner of one to take them out because I just had my nails done. Don't want to break a nail. And if you just use the corner like this of one of them, see under here, just pick it up like that. There you go. I'm just going to throw it in the center. Let's see if I can get this one popping up. There we go. There we go. And another one. All right. I got one more here. There we go. I think that's everybody. Where is there one? Did I lose one? No, oh, there it is. All right, so let me set those to the side. Okay, and then what I do is my hoop's going to stay on there. I'm just going to slide this way. All right, like that. And I can use my hoop forward if I want, but I can align if I want to align this way. What I'm looking at is over here. And let me see if I can zoom in that area so you can see a little bit better about what I'm doing. Here we go. There we are. Okay. So you can see this is where I would want it to stitch next. The distance between here and here should be this distance here. And I can eyeball that if I want. And I do need to make sure this line is going to line up right there. So let me pull this back for a minute and I'm going to put a fold there. There we go. So I can get that on the fold. Let's see, there it goes. There we are. And then I could slide it back here and have my template aligned right there. Okay. And then I would tape this in place. I'd get my grid in here. I'm going to do hoop forward, get my grid, and then make sure everything is straight. The other thing you can do, which is helpful, I think, is to take your grid and to put your template on it and tape it to the template, onto your template to the grid. And you could do it on the top or the back. I like it on the back for some reason, but you could put it on the top. All right, so let me get it in place. And then I know you guys can't see that just yet, but I'll show it to you in just a moment. There we go. You can buy like sticky template stuff too and run it through your printer. All right, so what I want to do, as you can see, I have it on here now. And I'm going to turn my glary light away a little bit. There we go, that might help a little bit. And I'm going to use my hoop forward key to bring it forward so I can pull my quilt and see about aligning it a lot better. I can get this under here like that. And I'm going to be looking at where this is aligning, and I want to look at my gray line over here. so that I can make sure I'm aligned left and right. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that's centered, and then I have it on the line. So I'm left and right, I'm good on the line, but I'm too close here. So I want to pull my fabric on this side. There we go. And I'm looking good. I notice over here, you can't see it, but my gray line is too far up. So I'm going to pull this down. That's looking good. And I might be just a tad. I think I'm pretty good there. And let me see. All right, so I think I need to be up just a little bit. There we go, this way. Even though that line is there, something must be crooked in here. All right, so once you get it where you want it, I think part of it too is my quilt is not all that straight. And I can look at this side of my stitching and what this is doing and making sure my quilt and my template are all matching up. I think they are. This is looking pretty good here. You can look at where it dips down on your grid to where it dips down on your grid over here. This little piece is right here, so I can kind of see what's happening. And then I'm looking at my distance here. And that's really up to you what you want your distance to be. If you want it to be a little bit more, pretty much when you get that perfect, as you go across, you won't even see it after a while. I have a whole quilt that I did. It's a whole cloth, and I did it all just block after block after block going across and down and across. And when I was really paying attention, you can't even see where it's attached, where the two pieces come together. So I'm just looking at the distance between my last stitching and where my template is. My last stitching and where my template is. And I do have that basting line in there, so that does help a little bit. If I want to continue with that, I can continue putting a basting line. I typically don't do that. And I'm just going to see that my needle is coming down. Yeah, it's looking like it's in the center still. All right, so then once I have this in place, I'm going to put my magnets in. Now with your CM17, I have my bigger wing on the back side and the shorter one on the front, but I think in retrospect, I would put my bigger one on the front as well. I don't typically have it on the front for normal sewing. That way I can get closer to it, but with a quilt, I would want to do that. There we go. And I'm right at the edge up here. You can see I'm right at the edge of that top fabric. So you can understand why you need fabric there. There we go. The thing to remember too, when you do your first project and as you work through it, you'll find out what visual tips, what visual pieces you need to help you place your quilt and where you're going to do your markings and how you're going to mark it. So I have a lot of tips for you, but as you go along, there's things, everybody learns a different way and has to see it in their way. So you may find an easier way to do it than what I did. Your way may be easier than what I do, or it's just different from what I do. It doesn't really, it's not really that, it's not tried and true. Everybody has to do it this way. No, you don't. I mean, I've been at shows where I've just sort of eyeballed stuff across and quilted quilts that way because I don't have a lot of room and a lot of space to get things done. So you have to kind of go with the flow and get that done. Now, I have this ready to go and I'm going to take my grid out. And this is where I'll need to do my hoop forward. And then I'm going to lift up carefully and slide this out. See how easy that slid out? And get it out of the way. And then I'm going to slide this back in. And if you just hit your You can hit start, stop, but I like to just, you can hit your hoop forward a button again or hoop back, and there it should be. And now when I'm looking at this, it's going to come down. It's slightly above our line. It could be that the fabric is moved a little bit. Let's see. On the template, it looked like it was perfectly on there. We'll see. And the other thing, if I want to baste, I can set the basting again. Let me put my needle back up, right? There we go. And we do our needle down and up. There we go. And then we are going to hit start for basting. Oh, wait a minute. Why did it go to one stitch stop? That's not what I wanted to do. Hang on. Let's go back to basting. Oh, that's why I didn't pick what I wanted to do. And hang on, let me turn this back. I'm going to go back one stitch. Actually, I'm going to use my minus button on the screen to go back to center. I'm going to bring my needle down and up so that thread over there will come back this way. Now I'll touch my basting and my basting function. And here it goes. It's going to go up to this top and it's going to start there. Now I don't normally baste. I'm sort of like get it set and go, but you can baste. And you can see how my baste is over, so my design will probably be at where that basting is. And for me, when I baste, then I have to take it all out. So that's typically why I don't do a lot of basting when I'm quilting. And I may baste maybe that top corner and the side corner, but I won't baste anything else. So I'm going to take out this part right here because it's going to be, I may stitch on it and I don't want to. And that is the problem with basting. And I am going to have thread on the back. If I can pull this up, I can, there we go. I can pull out the basting thread from the bottom too. There we go. But see, now I have to pick all that out. So for me, I prefer not to do that as much. I'll do a little bit, but not a whole lot. Let me see if I can pull up in the corner. Here we go. Get that bobbin thread up out of here, out of the way. There we go. And this corner, I think will be okay. There it is. Okay. Cut this short. All right, so now here we go. I'm going to turn off the basting. It's going to go to one stitch stop, so it'll move from that center spot to one stitch stop. There it is. And off it goes. Here we are. It's going to stitch a little bit, then I'm going to stop it and trim that thread. Now, I know a lot of people trim while it's moving, but be careful. You know, the machine will come around and that's when you'll get your fingers clipped or hit the piece. Be careful on this side that you don't have anything in the way, that you have your quilt supported. I'll move in a little bit. It's going to be shaky because I'm attached to the same table as my machine. I'll try to hold it up here so it doesn't shake as much. And again, this is well, it's got about 2 minutes left. So when I go to do the next one, I'm gonna set it up for you, but I'm not going to stitch it today because I think, you know, watching it stitch maybe is like watching paint dry. But we'll just move the quilt in a different direction and down so that you can see how that works, and then I'll set it up from there. And then when we come back on our next lesson, we'll be doing something a little bit more challenging. We're going to add to our skills as we go. And I'll try to make a schedule of what's coming up so that we have an idea of what we're doing from time to time. If there's something particular you'd like to see, please post it in the comments so that I can add it to a lesson or make sure I cover it in a lesson. If there's something you didn't understand about this lesson, please post and I can help with that. I can explain it during the next one or type an answer depending on what's going on. Here we go. I think we're coming back to the center. Almost done. Now in this design, I did, you know, when we were working in the software, I did make this a bigger stipple. Only because when I'm stitching and filming at the same time, I don't want to spend, you know, a lot of time stitching. I actually could have made a much larger design, but I wanted to show how I move from spot to spot so you could see that. All right, so there we are. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my magnets off and I'll show you, I'll show you kind of how I would do the next one down. I'm going to go down instead of to the side so you can see that. It's the same kind of thing. There we go. But I also want to show you the back of the quilt. Let's see what it looks like. It might be a surprise. Hopefully everything's good. And maybe after you stitch your first square, you should check the back to make sure everything's going well, especially if you haven't done quilting before, just to make sure your tension is correct and all of that. Typically it's spot on. Occasionally you'll have something, and if there's something wrong here, I can show you how that works. So to do the one down here, what I would do is I would bring my template back in and align it with this line and put the one here, put my magnets on and let this stitch. So you can see here where we are. We have that little bit of space. If I took out this basting thread here, you could see where that's at. Now when you're in the quiet of your space, things are even more exact. There we go, because you're not rushing or you're not on a time constraint. So there we go. So if you were looking at this, and I'm going to pull the camera in so you can see. So if you were looking at this, you might not be able to tell where that join is. We all know where it is because we saw it. But when you get this all done and you have a lot of this quilting on there, you hardly can see it. A lot of times you'll see it on the back because that's where the solid color is. So we'll move to the back and we'll see what happens on the back side. All right, let's see. And I'll zoom in a bit so you can, let's get this thread out of the way. There we go. Yeah, so see, this is my basting thread getting stuck under here, but it came out quite easy. Same with over here. I've got to dig it out over here. So this is, which isn't bad. I don't mind that. All right, so this is my back piece on there. I have these little guys. I can just trim those up. Sometimes I put a spot of freight check on there. It depends on my thread. All right, and I'm going to try to get the camera in close so you can see the stitches. Let's see what we can do here. It's going to be hard for it to, let's see if it'll focus. Oh, I'm going to have to go back out a bit. So it looks pretty good. I don't have any, let me see if I can find a curve where you guys can see it over here. So any of these curves, I don't have any of that railroading. Let's see if I hold it up, the camera. You see that better? See right there in the center, that little curve? There's no eyelashing. This all looks pretty good. I like it. Now here, I can barely see, I can see a little picky poo of the top thread only because this is a variegated thread. So sometimes there'll be light and dark spots. So you may see just a little shade there. So I don't really, that doesn't really bother me. If I had, if I did green on the back, I'll have to do one like that to show you. And then if I saw it up here, when in here, that would bother me. But I used my 10-gram case. I have the purple tip needle in. I'm using a 50 weight thread. This is Robeson Anton thread. It is variegated. I think it's 100% cotton. And I have it in my bobbin and my top thread. Let me just double check it. It is 100% cotton. Okay. So I think that's everything today. Let me see if I can go back to the other camera. I'm not in the same position, so we are a bit messy in that direction. Let me see if I can do it in this direction a little bit less messy. All right, I will come down here. All right, I'm going to put the camera on to say my goodbyes.